How long would it take me to look like Hugh Jackman?
I think people get in their heads that there has to be this intense kill yourself every session. I think muscle is a very important thing. I think muscle is body armor. I think muscle can lead to a more efficient metabolism.
Don Saladino,
a world-class trainer and coach.
He's the owner of the New York gym, Drive 495.
His client roster includes the likes of Scarlett Johansson, Sebastian Stan, Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and more.
Men feel like, I need to be freaking 180 pounds, muscle only. Women often undershoot, right? They want to be skinnier.
Normally, when I'm working with someone, it's like, this is the goal, this is the date. Putting that aside, I think resiliency and energy for me has always been like the number one goal. Some of the best lessons of my life came from
Don Saladino.
Let's go, brother.
Let's go, man.
Let's do
Thanks
it.
for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
First, and probably the most important question for you is, how long would it take me to look like Hugh Jackman?
Oh, God. I haven't trained Hugh. I got to be clear. I haven't trained Hugh in 18 years, but I got my greatest client, one of my greatest clients out of him, and that was Ryan Reynolds and obviously Blake Lively. So grateful for him for that. But listen, this is a consistency. This is like anything else. I think people get in their heads that there has to be this intense, like, kill yourself every session. And I think intense consistency does trump intensity in the long run.
I thought you were telling me off screen by 2024 I can look like Wolverine, no?
Oh, yeah, probably. Give me a couple months. It'll be give me a couple months.
I got good genes. No, first serious question is, there's this whole idea of like, what's your ideal body weight, I feel, for a lot of people. And for men, we often overshoot. People think, men feel like, I need to be freaking 180 pounds if you're like, muscle only. And then women often undershoot, right? They want to be skinnier than probably is the ideal weight. So how do you find that balance for clients of yours or people that you're advising? Like, what is the ideal weight?
Yeah, I mean, my situation has been a little different because when people are coming into me, they're getting ready for something. So I'm almost like always preparing someone for something. Like even now, like, and there's no offense to this, but I'm never gonna. I don't work with like Mrs. Smith on the street to just who wants just general fitness. Like I do that globally with our online programs, and I really enjoy it. But when I have someone coming to me, it's like we have 3 months, 5 months, a year, whatever it is, and this is what we have to look like. Which is very interesting because they're always picking some type of a body type or some type of a look. And that look could be to become more ripped and more muscular. And that look could be to put on body fat and, change their shape more to a pair looking a complete opposite. Like people don't understand. Or they might be wearing a bodysuit. And most people would say, well, why are you training someone for something, a role where there's going to be in a bodysuit? And I'm like, well, because they need resiliency and they're going to be riding a horse, or they're going to be doing a lot of their own stunts, and they have a bad back, and I need to put together a team who's going to help them get prepared for that role. So it is interesting because normally when I'm working with someone, it's like, this is the goal, this is the date, and we need to get there safely. But putting that aside, I think resiliency and energy for me has always been like the number one goal.
That's
like,
the number one thing. Yeah,
it is, because I'm into longevity. Like I'm there. I've kind of built the claim to fame out of coaches in my industry who just don't go. I don't go to performance enhancing substances. I don't, it's not my wheelhouse. It's not what I know how to do. When people ask me TRT questions, I don't know. It's go to a medical practitioner for those questions. Like go to a Dr. Gabrielle Line who's going to be here and ask questions and, get your blood work and see if you're someone that needs to be doing that. But a lot of times I feel like when coaches who sound smart in this, but don't have that medical license are giving advice, I find that it can be irresponsible at times. And in the long run, we do not know what's going to happen to someone's health when they are exploring with these things, one at a young age, or two at any time during their life. We don't know. I buried my best friend in 2010, who was 10 years older than me, and he got hooked on specific things that he could not get off of. And I saw him go through that battle, and it was very painful for me, but I saw his body shut down in time. And I found him dead in his bed. When I didn't hear from him Friday, it was Monday. I got back from Las Vegas. I met my wife in Vegas, and we went over to his apartment. We found him, in his room 3 days later. So when you see people go through that, and you see the reality of what could actually happen if you don't know what you're doing, you think about it a lot differently.
Yeah, that's scary, man. I mean, is there a different answer for looking and kind of preparing your body and how much you should weigh based on vanity purposes? Let's say a superhero like Wolverine, based on how you should look, versus what is actually good for longevity? What are the ideal body weight for that are actually going to allow you to live longer?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to your blood markers, and I think a lot of it comes down to cardiovascularly, what type of health you're in. I think muscle is a very important thing. I think muscle is body armor. I think muscle can lead to a more efficient metabolism. It could lead to resiliency, all these positive things that people don't think about. They just think about the guy who can hardly move walking around. I mean, but if you looked at me on a body mass index chart, I'm 6'1". Technically, I should be 185 pounds. I'm 210 pounds, but my body fat is always around that single digit range. So between that and my, my bloods and things I, like to keep track of because I'm kind of a health dork with this stuff and I just like quantifiable things. No, I think I'm in a really good place. But I think anytime someone comes into you and they're like, I got to lose 10 pounds, I'm like, no, you don't. You have to look like this or you want to look like this. I think sometimes people just get really attracted to a number in their head where they think that, well, this is when I was at my best. I was at 180 pounds and now I'm 190 pounds. And I'm like, well, that was when you were living this type of lifestyle. Like, what if you right now, you want to be 180 pounds. What if I told you right now you could be 190, but have the exact body that you wanted? And your health markers were just off the chart good. Like, would you be saying no to that? And they're like, I want to be 180. I'm like, you didn't answer my question. I said, you can look at yourself naked and have the exact physique you want, 10 pounds heavier. Are you going to be okay with that? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, just say yes.
Yeah.
Like, why are you like attaching a number to this? I think a lot of times weight loss and body composition change are completely different. I think most of the time, and I have people that need to lose weight. I have she's a friend now, but someone that reached out to me 7-8 years ago that was almost 900 pounds.
What?
Yeah, so she was 872 pounds, and I could be very open about this. I mean, we covered this on the Today Show. We got her down to 360. She got sick. She went back up to 450. She needs to lose weight. Like, let's be clear. This isn't a body composition change. This is, of course, body composition is going to change, but she needs to lose weight. She's got to get that body mass index down. But other people who are, in that healthy looking range, sometimes that body composition change might mean that they're putting on muscle, right? If you're, they did these tests on 100-pound models. I think it was a while ago. And it showed that I think over whatever it was, 50% of them had, I'm making this number up, over 30% body fat, which is obese. That's considered obese, even though they look thin. Were they technically healthy because they didn't have muscle? They didn't have that foundation that you need to be healthy as you're getting older. Yeah. I mean, most people, I'm sorry to break it to you, most of all of us are going to fall at one point. It's going to happen. It's happened to my parents. It's happened to my grandparents. God rest their soul. It's going to happen to people. So we want to make sure we have that bone density. We have that muscle. I think people now, they want that muscle to look and move a certain way. I kind of call it functional muscle. Like, everything's functional, but I think that's the term people are using now that they get very comfortable with.
Yeah. For people that may not have heard about you, let's just give some background in terms of how you got into this industry. Why should people listen to you around all these things? First of all, you should listen to because he's 47 and he looks like this, right? So people that are in video. So there's one.
Thank you. So I started as a coach in '99. I worked at a big box gym.
Went off on my own, started my own personal training business in New York
City. Went and did my first raise to open my first club in 2005. I raised $5 million to raise that. Opened that and had that club drive 495, which was a golf fitness training facility, for 15 years. Our 15-year lease expired May 31st of 2020. Gyms were forced to close April 16th. So, at that time, we were in the process of reopening. We also owned another gym called Drive 443. I also did another raise in the digital space. I think back in around 2010, opened, it was an app company. We partnered with Dwayne Wade, Ernie Els, and Adrian Peterson. Oh, wow. Just like an MTV Cribs of their lifestyle and how they train and how they eat and all this stuff. And the app did quite well for a while, and then it didn't. It really kind of crapped out. And I realized it was because of engagement. And that's what I really learned about the digital space. So come March 16th of 2020, I was already in the digital space. I was pretty comfortable with it. COVID was there. It was obvious. We collected PPP money. And I remember sitting up all night and building a 4-week workout program, giving it to free as a lead magnet to get a lot of people in there and just servicing, people for free for a few months until it was time to start, turning it into a business. And it worked out pretty well for us. So then come September 2020, we went back into renegotiations with our lease with our landlord. And I think with Cuomo allowing gyms to open at 33% capacity. It wasn't going to work for our model. And I think I very graciously was able to part ways on, something that always defined me, or I thought defined me. But I then was able to pivot off into another business that I felt like I was able to receive so much more reach. I was able to just now be in front of so many more people. Fortunately for me, I have a lot of great marketing in my life because I became like the superhero coach. One of them in
How did
Hollywood.
that happen? What's
So
the story there?
so you mentioned Hugh Jackman. I'm not Hugh Jackman's trainer, but I did train him for a year back in. God, my daughter's 17 now, 18 years ago. So I met Hugh, trained him for about a year for Wolverine in Australia. And at that point, I think people just heard I was working with him. I really lived in this performance physique world where I was an ex-athlete. My brother was a professional golfer. Went through all the Titleist Performance Institute training like early on. I think I was like the first graduating class of that, understood the golf swing. It started catering a lot to golfers. We built that up, and that was doing really well. Then in 07, 08, when all of our corporate spending just evaporated because companies like Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns all crapped out, we were hosting corporate events upstairs in our golf simulator area, like, liquor license, the whole nine, making real money. It was really a nice model. And then suddenly it just gone. And right around that time, Hugh came in to my club, was training with a buddy of mine that I allowed to come in. And then my buddy, his wife got pregnant with triplets. He ended up passing Hugh off to me, and Hugh and I started working out together. So that was really the start of, getting him ready for that role. And at that point, the floodgates open. I mean, you had everyone training in my gym from, The Rock to Jen Aniston to, there wasn't a name in Hollywood that didn't show up there.
Yeah.
But we protected them. That was something I took a lot of pride of. So that's where, that superhero angle came in. And, it's been it's been a blessing for me.
Yeah, that's kind of what kind of skyrocketed you to kind of what you're doing now.
Yeah,
right?
It was interesting because that part of my business was going great, and then you're dealing with brick and mortar in New York City, which was a challenge. It was every week there was something wrong. A $30,000 air conditioning bill because that exploded and the AC blows up, or a massive flood in the space where now you're having to tend to that, or losing power, or losing hot water for 3 months. It's like every single week.
Yeah.
There was honestly, it was probably every week to every few weeks there was a massive problem. Con Ed shut our power down at one point. Amex shut our credit cards off. I almost missed 37 consecutive payrolls. And for 1 year, I burned about $100,000 a month. So I went through about $1.2 million. So I went through the bright idea of asking my members at that time. We realized we had to pivot our business. And I went to a handful of members and I raised 50 grand, 100 grand. And I did prepaids, which I was going to train off their services. So if they spent X, I gave them a slight discount. They front loaded me the money. I was very open about what was happening, but my plan, and I trained it off in about 18 months, about $1 million in training.
Dude, you went through it.
Oh, yeah, dude, that's why I don't, even in this business now, even walking downstairs, you have some successful doctors and really well-known people. And I don't say this to be cocky, but to do it in New York City, to do it at the level I did it at, one of my locations was $1 million a year in rent, just in rent. Yeah, I had $15,000 a month in real estate taxes. So I think those were incredible learning curves for me. Looking back on it now, would I do it again at this time? No, I don't have the chops for it anymore because I'm just in a different stage of my life. But I would not change a thing. Even those hardships that I went through, they allowed me to become creative. It got my entrepreneurial juices flowing. Like when your ass is against the wall and you're like, oh my God, I got to come up with 100 grand in the next 24 hours. Yeah. Those were pressures that a lot of coaches are going to fold on and they're not going to know what to do. But looking back on it now, they were magical moments that allowed me to develop a business sense that most coaches aren't going to have.
Yeah, I love that. First of all, you have obviously the fitness background, but you have the business experience of being in the grounds. And a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, they're freelancers, they're big professionals. They don't have a lot of time to be working out. So I want to kind of start with that because I'm sure this is the common thing you get with
100%.
high profile people that you work with. Give me the 80-20 for someone that is incredibly busy. Maybe they have 30 minutes in a portion of time. What are like the 5 exercises, 5 to 7
amazing
top exercises?
Amazing. We first off, if you have 30 minutes 3 days a week for me, like we can create something.
That's a lot for you, huh? Like
that's a lot for a lot of people. They're just, let's build it there. Let's start with a minimalistic approach. So I would start with like kind of a squat, some sort of a squat, not a back squat, some sort of a squat, some sort of a hinge. Okay.
What's a hinge?
It could be like an RDL, a good morning, a kettlebell swing, kickstand RDL, some sort of a hinge, an upper push, an upper pull, and a core. I would go with those 5 movements. So to just break it down, something that's very safe, split squat, just a basic split squat. We can start working on just a basic RDL, a hinge or Romanian deadlift. We can go to a horizontal push like a dumbbell bench press or a push-up, a horizontal pull like a row, okay? And then I think a core movement, I would go with a one-arm suitcase carry just to get that, get that engagement.
One-arm suitcase carry.
That's a rack carry. So like a farmer walk would be with 2 dumbbells along your side or 2 kettlebells. A suitcase carry is just holding one. It's like you're carrying one suitcase. So now that has to force my other half to really engage and get my shoulders level. And now I'm working, kind of that asymmetry.
And that's for the core.
The core, the glutes, the grip, the forearms, the shoulders. It's really a very safe, a very user-friendly exercise I've been using for over 2 decades.
Can you just use a dumbbell for that?
100%.
Yeah, okay.
100%.
So you just need weight, basically.
Yeah, and there's been some people publicly they're trying to establish some sort of like a protocol to follow. And I completely disagree with it. It's you don't have to carry your body weight for a minute.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. That's, by the way, that's complete nonsense. It doesn't that's a lot of weight. For me, that would be 105 pounds in each hand. Can I do that for a minute? Yes. Many people who are in great shape cannot do that for a minute. And guess what? It's okay. It doesn't mean you're able to not open a jar when you're older. I heard that the other day and I was like, oh my God, really? You want to open a jar, just keep opening jars your whole life. And stay aerobically
I love that
fit.
that's the metric, right?
Yeah, but it's like, okay, so now suddenly carrying 200 pounds, you want me to open a jar one day? Okay, a minute? How much you weigh?
Right now, 140.
Okay, 140. So that would be 70-pound dumbbells in each hand.
Yeah.
Go walk for a minute. You look like a healthy guy. You look a very in shape.
I could do it, but it'd be hard for sure.
Okay, so do you think so suddenly you can only do that for 30 seconds? Does that mean is that it? No, you're fine. So I think what happens is people are trying to, they may do research and the research is is that really 100% valid? Does it have to be a minute? You mean 30 seconds is bad, right? And then it's just, everyone's trying to give this quantifiable thing to allow eyeballs to turn to them. And I'm not saying in time, I love to train hard. Let's be very clear. I love pushing myself. But the reality is most people out there with their work schedules, with their level of stress, I would rather them almost scale back. Dog it a little bit. Honestly, you're someone who can't get to the gym. You have no motivation to get to the gym. Put on a good playlist. Get those 5 exercises that are going to be great for you. Get in and get out. And don't throw this frivolous amount of work on top of what it is you're supposed to be doing. Because even though you feel good today, you might do too much today, which is forcing you to not do anything tomorrow. And again, I think that's what's allowed me to be in the game this long, is that I'll take people who hate it. And let's face it, a lot of these celebrities in Hollywood don't like it. It's not their job. It's not what they enjoy doing. They're doing it for their job, right? But it's not like training isn't their job for every role. Some roles they have to look like a school teacher. So what do they have to come in there with muscles like this? No, they don't. They just, some of them want to stay in shape and some of them don't. But I think when I show them how easy things are and how that consistency piece and just feeling better, then suddenly they're like, wow, my body's changing. I feel better. I'm sleeping better. What next?
Right.
And that's kind of that's okay, once we start that, once they say those words to me, I'm like, okay, well, I'm still not giving you, in my head, I'm still not giving you my plan, but try this. Let's try adding this now. And the next thing you know, 6 months go by and I just got them to make 6 major changes in their life and they didn't even know it. Yep. And then those are non-scale victories. Those are things that, wow, those are going to change your health overall. And then, they're going to turn around 6 months later like, oh my God, everyone's telling me I look great. I feel great. I'm enjoying this now. I never liked this. And I think that's the name of the game.
That's awesome. I want to get really nitty gritty here so that we can get people that are busy that can really get that.
Sure.
Okay. So we talked about those 5 exercises. Are you doing those, and it's hitting full body, right?
Sure.
So do you recommend doing full body?
I like full bodies for people with limited time.
Got it.
I really do, because now we're training more frequently rather than coming in and hitting chest triceps one day and then leg, shoulders another day, and then back and biceps. Like we're not really hitting things with frequency. We're just going in and hitting those muscle groups one day. And if we want to get better at things, in my opinion, like we need to practice those things. And if we're lowering the volume per workout, meaning if we're doing less work, that gives us, at a less intensity, that gives us the ability to train more frequently. So like anytime like I'm designing a program for someone, it's like, well, how much time do you have? What injuries do you have? Obviously, it's like one of the first things I'm looking at. And then I like to look at them in that setting and see, like, is this person that likes to push themselves? Do they not like to push themselves? And then I could design a program around that. If someone's, not able to train much, we're going to train more frequently, and we're going to lower volume. On the other hand, I've worked with bodybuilders that like want to get in and hit body parts twice a week, and we're able to hit it and still keep an eye on rest. And their main goal there is just hypertrophy, right? But there's still, no matter what, it's always like energy, it's always movement quality, it's always resiliency. I don't care what you're training for, whether we even talk about it or not. In my programs, I'm always kind of tricking them into doing things that's going to allow them to have that foundation.
Yeah, the problem for me is like I'll work out and then let's say do biceps and chest, let's say, or biceps and back, and then I'll just be too busy. And then I realized I went 5 days without doing that exercise. So it's like, you're right, like having that frequency of doing all body, it makes more sense for people that are busy.
Well, that's what we're giving your community a free body weight program in my group. And I think the beautiful thing about that is it's 5 full bodies.
5, okay.
So they can hit up to 5 days a week, but if they want to cut it down and do 3 days, that's great. They can remove days from it. So I set the program up that way. It's free, guys. I'm not charging anyone anything for this, but I think having that flexibility, I think is a beautiful thing. Because like you said, if you now do a full body on Monday and then you can't get in Tuesday, Wednesday, and you got to hit Thursday, you're able to hit a full body. Come back with that full body. We're keeping everything warm while you might be a little less consistent because of work or travel. And you're going to be more successful because now a week and a half, 2 weeks not going to go by and you're going to be like, oh, I haven't hit my legs. I got to hit my legs, but I don't want to, right? We're just kind of getting in and touching the legs, hitting them a little bit, giving it some rest, coming back, hitting it again, giving it some rest. We're never actually coming in and like destroying you.
Yeah.
But there's been great success on that. Like I've done body part splits. I've done push-pull legs. I've done full bodies. I've done every type of training there is out there. Like I said, I'm 47. I've been here a while.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
And you feel like full body, if you can do it right, is just as effective in many cases.
I
If
mean,
you're not trying to be a bodybuilder.
Yeah, if you're not trying to be, if you're someone trying to create, like the whole goal is hypertrophy, a lot of great research now out on full body programs. But I think for a portion of for my community at a certain time during the year, it's full bodies. But don't think for a second I'm not doing upper lower splits. I am. Or it's 1 day upper body, 1 day lower body, another great way to structure it.
Yeah.
Don't think for a second I'm not doing 1 day of upper push, 1 day of upper pull, and then 1 day of legs, and then maybe a day off and repeating. But I think for the busy worker, the person who is unable to maintain consistency, I have found this is one of the best ways to go about your training and really get that work and get that consistency. And you'll see results.
Is that every day, like Monday to Friday? Like how do you balance
Again,
that?
it depends. This program can be a 5-day-a-week program. I always like to tell my people you have 7 days in a week to get these 5 workouts in. But
So 5, okay.
right now, personally, I'm lifting only 4 days.
Really?
Because Yep. So right now, like I'm personally only lifting 4 days because I'm getting, 2 upper days, 2 lower days. I'm playing hockey 1 to 2 days a week, which I always do.
Yeah.
And I'm going for a run 1 day. So I'm still training 6 days a week. But I felt for a while, like the 5-day, the 6-day-a-week split, which I did for a long time, at certain points during the year, I might start overreaching. Travel's picking up. Stress is picking up. My environments are changing. Time zones are changing. Wow, body's not feeling as good. Like getting out of bed, feeling a little slower. That's like sign one. I might not be recovering. So backing off a day allowed me to now get stronger. Will I go back to 5 days a week or 6 days a week? Yeah. I will. But I think doing the same thing all the time and just trying to add more exercises and add more intensity is a recipe for disaster.
Interesting. I guess it's also dependent on like how many sets you do, reps, like how hard you go. So
well, look at it this way. Like, so your traditional, I'm not going to use chest, but let's use legs. Let's say a bodybuilder turns around to you and says, oh, I did a leg workout on Monday. Whatever, let's just say Monday, right? Well, how many sets did you do? I did 20 sets of legs, like high volume, a lot of work. Okay, like imagine, doing 5 days of legs, but at 4 sets. you're still accumulating 20 sets,
Mm.
but now we're allowing you to stay a little more fresh. Now you're probably not going to be as sore. I still think that's a lot of volume for
Yeah,
legs,
that's
right?
crazy,
I
yeah.
mean, but a lot of these bodybuilders are taking performance enhancing substances, and they are doing things for their profession that's allowing them to be successful. So, I still don't know the long-term ramifications. We still have seen a lot of them, unfortunately, leave this earth a little too early. And, I know some people are saying, well, it wasn't from steroid use. Okay, like, say what you want. Like, this person was 100 pounds heavier than they needed to be. You're only going to get to that side from taking performance-enhancing substances and eating a certain way. So if you think that's not what was the cause of it, fine. It's terrible that this person's gone. But I think for the demographic that you're talking about, I do believe that full bodies aren't the only way. But if you are going to have that level of inconsistency, I think it is the right way.
Yeah. And then talk to me about reps,
Mm-hmm.
sets, how much weight you should be putting in your body
Sure.
if you're doing five
I would say
workouts.
the majority of the time, and I'm saying probably 70 to 75% of your training, you could be anywhere from like a 5 to 30 rep range. It is literally
Whoa,
that
that's a
way.
huge
It's
range.
a huge range.
So how do you?
Well, I do like that whole periodizing approach where, you could take a few weeks and do higher rep work. And then, every 2 weeks you could start very simply, dropping your reps. So if you wanted, first couple of weeks, lowering the amount of sets, doing, say, I'm making this up, and I don't do this all year, but 30 reps for 2 sets. And you do that for 2 weeks. And then another 25 reps for 2 sets. And then 20 reps for 2 sets. And then we're dropping to 15 for 2 sets. And then
You're increasing the weight, you're saying.
as
we
those
do that.
reps are dropping,
Yeah.
that weight is increasing. So now I think we're really training in a very wide rep range. But I think we're focusing on everything from strength and power to muscular endurance, and we're still creating hypertrophy in that range. I think that range is a great range for hypertrophy, but there are some exercises that I feel like we respond really well to, or specific individuals respond really well to when they're doing really high reps.
Yeah.
And there are other people who respond really well to, different, maybe a lower rep range. I've always taken more of a power building approach. So I've always liked those compound lifts. I've always liked a form of squat, a form of deadlift, a form of horizontal pressing or bench pressing, pull-ups, chin-ups, whatever. And I do train at a lower rep range on a lot of those, but 100%, I will raise the reps on that at a certain time of the year, especially if my body starts feeling a little beat up.
Is that important to mix it? Because I've also
100%.
only done one set of, like, let's say 3 sets, 8 reps. That's
Well, it's
like,
worked well for you. I mean, you're in great shape. But I'm
Right.
curious to see, and we don't have to go as 30. I think is very light, but it is. In my opinion, that's kind of the range, because I'll take things like glute bridging, I'll take things like back extensions, I'll take that in the 25 to 30 rep range. So, but with you, I don't think we have to go as high as 30, but I would be interested in to see, spend 2 weeks at 15, spend 2 weeks at 12, spend 2 weeks at 10, spend 2 weeks at 8, go down to 6.
yeah.
Feel a little bit of heavier weight, a little bit of heavier load, see what that does to your strength, see what that even does to your mindset. You might start getting excited. You might be, wow, I'm getting stronger. And I think rotating through rep ranges like that I think people who are into it for general fitness, you're not trying to get on stage. You want to feel healthy. You want to have high levels of energy. You want to develop resiliency. I think it's a nice approach. It's not the only approach, but I think it's a very good, simple way for people to structure their training.
You know what's funny is during the pandemic, when we couldn't go to the gyms, all I had was a kettlebell. And everything else was like calisthenics. And I felt amazing. Like, I actually built muscle.
Yeah.
And I was so surprised by that, because for 15 years, I've always known that you have to have weights.
Well, you're probably doing high reps.
Way higher reps.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
like burning my muscles as well, right?
But I like that. I think I think when we fall into the trap of going so heavy or so low, or living in one rep range, I think we neglect other qualities and other things that we can develop. And I don't think, do you have to do it? Absolutely not. Look at you. You look great. But you're in great shape. And it's interesting sometimes when you start making changes, how it excites you also. And you're like, wow, I'm really excited to do. Oh my God, I'm going down to 6 reps. When's the last time I did 6 reps? And then sometimes going up into that 20 rep range, I know if my body's feeling beat up, that's really a nice thing sometimes to come into the gym and be like, oh, I got a kind of moderate weight at 20s. Like, God, I can't wait for this. It's just going to feel good. And you get all this blood into the muscle, and you're working up a sweat, and your joints just feel good and rested after a few weeks. And I think it's a nice thing to mix in.
So your default rate is to do lower reps and to do, more weights and less reps with that. But then once in a while, like when you feel beat up, that's when you decide to go high. Like how do you know when to go high
Yeah,
reps?
so what I'm always doing is like most of the time of my year, those big lifts, like my squat, my bench, my dead, like, yeah, it could be anywhere from, I think the majority of the time I'm probably in like a 2 to, 6 rep range area.
2 to 6, yeah.
Yeah, probably in there. My other lifts can be all year long, could be anywhere from like 8 to, 25, 30. Like
Wow.
it is some movements I like to get in there and just get a lot of blood in there. And that for me feels really good. When I think your body starts feeling beat up from those big lifts, I don't think there's anything wrong. I saw a friend of mine the other day, he was benching 405 for sets of 15. And he's like, going high rep here. And I'm like, oh my God, 405 for 15 is insane.
Christ.
Like I can't, like, that's my 225,
Oh my
plus
God.
weight.
Was
So
he huge? Is he a huge guy?
he's probably my size.
Oh shit.
He's just a power lifter.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he's like, strength is a skill. So I'm a huge believer that like with the development of strength comes hypertrophy. And, you could develop that, that structure, that foundation. A lot of times in training, everyone's like chasing where their heart rate's at.
Yeah.
And most of the time people are coming to me like, oh, my heart rate was up at 170. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I know like 170 for me is like, I'm on the hockey rink, like flying like nonstop for, doing, suicides. Like that's me really pushing. Like it just, heart rate's all individualistic. What are we looking at heart rate for? I honestly would say 90% of the people out there measuring heart rate don't really know what they're measuring or what they're looking at. Yeah. They're just like, oh, my heart rate got to this. I'm like, oh, cool. Like,
what's the baseline?
Like, what's the baseline? Yeah. Like, what do you like? With heart rate, like I really look for recovery. Like in intense activity, or if someone is, doing intervals, I'm looking to see, how quickly their heart rate can recover. Like when a hockey player is getting off the ice, I might be looking at their heart rate and timing them to be like, okay, you were just up at 160 and it took you 30 seconds to get to 120. That to me, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So having that ability to recover is something that I use that for, or to even structure training around readiness. Like if someone's using an aura, or let's just say this, and this has happened to you. You've had some bad night's sleep, right? Like it's happened. You've had travel. You change time zones. This stuff happens, and you're just feeling fried. Like, and I think a great indicator is grip. Like if you've ever jumped up on the pull-up bar and you just feel weak.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Or if we used one of those grip, what are they called? The hand.
Yeah. I actually have one in my bag.
Yeah. God, I'm forgetting the name of it right now. I'm drawing a blank. But I think measuring grip strength is a great way to measure your readiness. And sometimes if your readiness is low, and which heart rate can measure that also. Like if you wake up and your heart rate is typically at 41, 42 beats a minute, and then you're going through these stresses, and the next thing you know, your heart rate's at like 49, 50 beats a minute, which can come from alcohol or lack of sleep or living a stressful environment or time zone changes. That's a sign that your training has to change. It's not high intensity at that point. In my opinion, it's not. Maybe that's more of your steady state zone 2 cardio. Maybe it's going through, your movement and allowing your body to stretch and floss and recover. It doesn't mean you have to take off. So I think using these ways to measure readiness are really important. And it becomes discouraging if you're exhausted and going into the gym and you're like, oh my God, my trainer's going to kill me today, and I haven't had a good night's sleep in a week. Like your trainer should not be doing that.
Right.
That's flat out irresponsible. You're not going to get in better shape. It's going to work against you. And if you were with a smart coach, that coach telling you to like, hey, let's go into our recovery mode today. Like we're still going to work, we're still going to move, but that max effort deadlift you're going to hit today, let's hold that off for a few days. Like that's training. That's smart.
Speaking of recovery and kind of cardio, I guess, where do you place endurance and cardio when you're doing these resistance training? So for me, like I usually just do like a quick 5-minute row before I work out. But I don't know if I'm supposed to do that after, before, and how that all ties
I think
in.
5 minutes before is fine. I think if that's what's going to get your blood going and that allows you to kind of wrap your mind around things and it gives you a more successful workout, I'm all for it. You also got to ask yourself, what is the goal? Like if someone's coming to me and they're like, I have to run before my lift. I have to, Don. Every time I go into the session, I'm tired. Who am I to say no to that? If that's allowing you to be more successful, go for it. Like if it's strength and conditioning or if you're a power lifter, okay, there's a reason why I would tell you not to do that.
Got
but
it.
For the people listening to this, if they feel more successful getting some cardio in their session beforehand, do that. If it's going to cause you to be too tired to execute your lifting session, you might want to think twice about that.
Well, because I do it for just warming up my body, but maybe there's smarter ways that I can stretch, and like what are some ways that you would recommend if
Yeah, I call it practice.
Okay.
So I think it's a smart way of warming up. So I think we all move differently. Like you might have, an incredible toe touch and I might not, or, you might not, you might be able to extend your back, like your thoracic spine in this direction. I might not be able to. So based off of your movements, I like assigning to people a dynamic warm up. It's like a dynamic way of stretching that is going to allow their heart rate to elevate, but also work on those inefficiencies to the way that you move, right?
Yeah.
I want to help correct those dysfunctions. You can't always do it. Someone's got spinal fusion. You're not fixing that,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
What's done is done. But I think a lot of times when someone's sitting at a desk a lot and they're in this position, then I'm going to be working on a lot of thoracic extension and a lot of thoracic rotation. I'm going to be working on glute activation. Those are 3 exercises I can throw in for that now in the warm up. So I might structure that into a 3 to 5 body weight movement circuit and say, listen, I'm giving you 3 to 5 movements right now. We're going to get through this in the next 5 to 7 minutes. And they're sweating, but their
Right.
body feels loose and ready to go. And we just unwound all that tightness. That's something I make sure I put in everyone's program, whether it's a global, the global program people are going to get, they're going to have, I call it my A block. It's my A block.
Because to me that seems better than just walking, because you're sweating and you're increasing your heart rate, but what you're doing is you're doing both. You're like warming up the body and you're stretching
I
it
don't want
out.
to say better, but some people need both. Some people
Yeah.
are just like, listen, I'm coming in the session, I'm tired. I need to let my mind marinate about what I'm about to do. And do you have a problem with me doing it? And the answer is no. The only time I have a problem with someone doing it is if it's going to remove so much energy and focus from the work we're about to put in.
Yeah, if you have a hard workout coming up, right?
Yeah, it's like, oh, I just ran 6 miles and I'm exhausted and I'm getting lightheaded. And it's like, dude, we're supposed to go through a leg session right now. Do you think that was the best, was that the best decision? And they're like, okay. Like,
Yeah, they're just following what they've been told pretty much, and
Right.
the habits that they have. It's not
Right.
necessarily
and also what's worked for a lot of these coaches out there, I mean, you respect that because this is what they enjoy and this is what they've had success doing it, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. A coach is going to help you figure out what works for you.
right. Talk to me about progression of weight. So I feel for me, like when you work out and then you kind of like fall off the bandwagon and then you just kind of like stay at the same weight over time.
Yeah.
That's kind of feel as like my story, but like, what would you recommend as like the progression? Is it like 10%? month
As
or-
little as you can,
As little as possible, okay.
I am like 2.5 pound jumps. Like I like
Oh, wow.
however little it can be.
So
on
leave the
bar.
ego out of this.
Oh yeah, this is
yeah.
but like God, I mean, if I had a 2 pound progression
Yeah.
every week, I'd be the strongest human being. Like it'd be like no one would be strong. Like honestly, like it's not going to get to a point where you just keep getting stronger and stronger. And that,
Yeah.
in my opinion, is when, all right, maybe the sets and reps need to change. Maybe the focus needs to change. Maybe you've been focusing on 5 reps. Now let's get really strong at, I'm making this up, 20 reps.
Yeah.
Because your body's not going to be used to it, and it's going to be a new focus. So I think the safe answer is go slower, go as slow as you can go in those progressions, but progress. Progressing 1 week could be, if you did say you're doing 3 sets, you're doing 3 sets,
3
8.
sets. Yeah. Usually 8.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm going to make this number up now. Let's say you were dumbbell pressing 50-pound dumbbells for 3 sets, 8, making this number up. And next week you did a set of 9 and 2 sets of 8. That's a progression. Think about it. That's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
progression. So like right there, it doesn't always have to be because most dumbbells are only going up 5 pounds. If a gym is big enough, they'll have 2.5 pound
2.5,
jumps
yeah.
from 30 pounds or from 50 pounds to 52.5 pounds, right? You will some gyms will have that progression, but sometimes you don't always have that luxury.
Yeah.
And a person who's jumping from a 10-pound dumbbell to a 15-pound dumbbell, that's significant. That's too much sometimes.
Yeah.
And gyms, and they're like, well, I can't, I can't grab the 15s. They're too heavy. But I could do side raises with 10s. I'm like, how many reps are you doing? 10. Go for 11. Not 12. Just go for 11. Own the position. And the next thing you know, 4 or 5 weeks later, they're doing 15.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, let's now drop the reps and grab those 15s and let's go to 6 reps and let's start working our way up. Like this stuff takes time and it's slow. I also think it's safer, right? I mean, we got to talk about too the safety of training. Like if someone is dysfunctional in the way they move, or there's a pattern that's dysfunctional, and you start loading that pattern, you're loading dysfunction, and this is how injuries can come, right? This is how it can happen. If someone can't do a body weight squat, yet you're throwing a bar in their back, you're loading dysfunction, and that can be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's confusing when you're at a gym and then you've got, cute girls that are beside you, and then you're putting in the small, tiny 2.5 pound little thing next to it, and you're like struggling. You're like,
No, you're gonna laugh.
You know what I mean?
You're gonna laugh because even before I met my wife, like I would go to gyms, and it was like the one place
yeah,
I just, don't get it twisted. I love going out and having fun, but I was just at gyms. I was training at like these underground dungeons.
oh yeah,
Where like you could have a naked woman walk in front of you, and everyone is so serious and so serious. It was just the environment of like
Okay.
going in, and you're just sitting there like focused.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think people who are in a position like me are going to understand that. But that for me, it was like the one area where too much distraction isn't a good thing.
I know, I
It's
agree,
tough,
I
it's
agree.
tough,
And your
it's tough.
ego's in play,
Yeah,
so you're
you're
like you're
better
lifting
off.
heavy things that you shouldn't be lifting.
Yeah, it's hurt a lot of people, and a lot of egos have crashed because of this.
Yeah. They need to end co-ed gyms,
Oh
for
my
this
God.
sakes.
Oh my God. You and I are gonna someone's gonna hire a hitman for you right now.
Clearly,
Okay.
yeah, no.
Funny.
I'm not being serious. Keep the co-ed, please. I prefer that.
I love it.
So we talked about busy entrepreneurs. Let's say for a vast majority of people, they're looking to lose weight, lose fat.
Yeah.
Should their resistance training be different, like higher reps? Like how should that be different in exercises?
I think I more structure higher reps for people who out of the gate who are needing that practice. Like if you're new to the gym, or if your body's under an incredible amount of stress, doing low reps, I don't think is the best decision. So I think coming in and doing 15 reps, 20 reps, I think is going to give you a little bit of that cardiovascular or aerobic response. I feel like their heart rate's going to elevate, their time under tension is going to elevate. They're going to definitely feel the muscle, and I think that's a good way to approach it. But weight loss, I would look at things like steps. Out of the gate, I would look at like activity level.
It's cardio.
Yeah, so but steps. I kind of separate cardio and steps a little bit. Cardio is a little bit more structured level of heart rate training. Now, if someone's not in great shape and they go out for a 20-minute walk and their heart rate's at 120, that's cardio. But you and I go for a walk and our heart rate's at 75 walking, and we just did 10,000 steps. I don't really consider that cardio. I just consider that movement, and that's my opinion.
Interesting. Okay.
But I think things like hydration, massively important. I think protein consumption is something that Dr. Gabrielle Lyon's talking a lot about, and I think it's so important. I think sleep, it's one of the greatest fat burners out there. I keep quoting Paul Chek on this. And
Why sleep?
It's how our hormones are going to really repair and recover. And I think if our hormones are more efficient, we're going to be able to get a better response from that. We're going to have higher levels of energy. Our recovery is going to be a lot better. And our cortisol levels are going to be more regulated.
Right.
And I think I know we will burn a lot more. I've improved people's sleep by like 90 minutes a night and seen a significant difference in their body composition when we haven't changed anything with their training or their eating. So I think it's one of the best fat burners, and it's free. So right there, it's like, hydration, steps, protein, sleep. We haven't even really talked about resistance training. Now, resistance training, yes, I'll add it in there, but what am I asking for here? 20 to 30 minutes at 3 days a week? Get it in, make those movements efficient, get out, be active, move, laugh. Try and eliminate a lot of these toxic people. I mean, I am a believer that, our mood and our surrounding is going to lead a lot into our happiness and how our body's recovering and how we're handling our, every day, our day to day. But those things right there, if we can really focus on, and then I get into things like, well, where are your carbs at? Where are your fats at? I could call the fourth macronutrient fiber, which is, I can't tell you how many people are like not losing weight and, I eat good protein and my carbs and fats are in a great place. And why aren't I losing weight? And like, I look at their fiber and, this guy over here is getting 15 grams a day. And I'm like, oh my God, that's really low. Like, are you craving foods at night? Yes. Are you binging a lot? Yeah. I'm so hungry. It's like, okay, you're not satiated. That fiber is important for, that detoxification process and staying satiated. And there's all these important things that our body's going to receive from these different types of nutrients that we're consuming. So I don't want to say all this to confuse people. I would just say choose one thing a month.
Yeah.
Everything like month 1, hydration. Nail your water, half your body weight in ounces. Month number 2, start working on your steps. Well, how many steps? They say 10,000. Well, how many are you getting? Only 4,000. Get 5,000. Like, honestly, it's that simple.
Don't even shoot for 10.
Yeah, don't even shoot for 10. Like, you're not going to get it. Well, once 5 becomes easy, let's go to 6. And then you know what? Start walking 10 minutes after breakfast, 10 minutes after lunch, 10 minutes after dinner. You're going to get another mile, a mile and a half a day. You're going to hit that 10,000 number pretty quickly. And we just think we have to do it all at once.
And steps you think are more powerful? Because I guess in my head, it seems like you burn a lot of calories when you're sweating and you're running.
You are
and all
through
that
resistance
stuff.
training, but you'd be surprised with this additional movement
Yeah.
thrown on top of that. Your calorie burn is going to be higher. Your blood glucose response is going to be really good after a meal. And, where a lot of times we might be feeling that crash. If you go walk for 10 minutes, your digestion is going to be so much better.
Yeah.
You're going to process and metabolize those foods a lot better. So I think these are all things that add. We're looking for this holistic approach. Again, simple. 3 days a week, 20 to 30 minutes of resistance training. And then every month, start improving one category. Water, month 1. Steps, month 2. Month 3 could be, protein. Month 4, start trying to improve sleep. I'm not telling you to go from 4 hours a night to 8. If you can, great. I love it. But let's be realistic here. Sleep has to be trained. If you're going to bed at different hours every night and waking up at different hours every morning, of course, sleep's going to be hard. If you don't eat breakfast and suddenly I'm telling you to eat breakfast, of course, that's going to be hard. Like these things need to be trained if you haven't done it in a while.
Yeah. If you're trying to focus on something specific, let's say like someone's trying to get a 6-pack.
Yeah.
Is that just going to naturally happen as you lose weight, or like are there specific programs that you walk people through if they want a 6-pack?
Well, I want to be clear that like training your abs, it's still a muscle. It's like your biceps, right?
Yeah.
Like you want to develop a stronger looking biceps. You're going to train it in a range that's going to create hypertrophy. So I do agree with training your midsection and trying to build muscle in your midsection. Your belly's not going to be, out like this from training your abs. I mean, that happens from specific substances that people take out there. And that's why they have those distended stomachs. But yeah, I mean, training still has something to do with it. But again, if you have layers of fat over it and you have bloat going on and you have food intolerances and every time you eat something, your stomach blows up, like you're not going to see your abs. Like it doesn't matter. It's funny. A lot of strong men, like a lot of them, I'm friends with, they're power lifters, like they're big guys, and I'll come over and I'll hit their abs. Their midsections are rocks, but they pull their shirts up and you can't see an ab because they have higher levels of body fat. So they're covering the abdominal wall and they can't really see it. So yeah, I mean, abs are not, I wouldn't say, are they made in the kitchen? It's going to help. But then you have that, diamond in the rough that's never eaten anything but chicken fingers and fries, and they take their shirt off and they look amazing.
Right.
That kind of messes it up for everyone else because they're like, oh my God, but he or she does this, and why can't I do that? I'm like, because you can't. It's just the reality.
Is it just what, genetics?
It could be genetic. My best friend has been like that. He hasn't had a good diet his whole life. He's 62 years old, and I will never look like him. He's unbelievable. I've been on 3 covers of Muscle and Fitness since 2018. I still will never look like him. And but for him, training, he's been consistent, and it's been part of his survival his entire life.
Yeah.
Now, do I want him to eat healthy? Yes, because there's other things going on internally that's going to help him with his digestion or his gut health or his sleep quality. So, don't think that eating like shit's okay just because you look good.
Yeah.
So there's other reasons why I want people to do it.
Talk to me about maximizing testosterone.
Ooh. A lot of the things I said. Protein.
You said, is it 1 gram?
Yeah, I
per
would say
pound?
around 1 gram per pound. It does
Okay.
not, now you do not need 1 gram per pound to survive. Let's be very clear here.
Yeah.
And that's what screws people up. It's like, well, you don't need that much protein. Like, to what? To live? Sure. Like, to put on muscle? Like, you are going to need around, a gram. Now, I say a gram, it could be 0.85 grams. It could be 1.25 grams. Like, if you want to get in a caloric surplus, one of the 3 macronutrients has to come up. So you have to decide, like, if I need to be, right now I'm consuming 4,200 calories a day, which is a lot. With how clean I eat, and to be in a little bit of that surplus, if I drive my fat and my carbs too high, not a good thing. So I do push my protein a little bit. I might get up to 1.25 grams, max 1.5 grams.
And where do you get it? What's the source of protein for you?
Eggs,
okay.
chicken, turkey. I eat salmon, protein powder, grass-fed steak, bison, turkey meat. Did I say turkey? No, I didn't say turkey, right?
I don't know. You just said a lot.
I might have said it. 6 or 7 sources there that I have daily. And then veggies, very important because I want those micronutrients. I want those fibers. So for me, what is it? It's like I try and rotate. I go, asparagus, I go broccoli, I go cauliflower, I go string beans, I go spinach, I go kale. When I go to different areas or like I'm in Florida right now and I'll go to a restaurant. I was over at True Fruit, and I'm like, oh, I'm ordering things I don't have access to at home. Because I want that different type of nutrition. Carbs, I think, are a little bit more simple because it's fruits. That would consider that a carbohydrate. I think it's oatmeal that I do have in the morning, and a lot of people don't like to consume oats. I do really well with it. Higher levels of fiber. I want my fiber at least about 38 grams a day. Sweet potato, my favorite carbohydrate. I still consume jasmine rice, which I like. Some quinoa.
Does that have a very low glycemic index?
Jasmine rice glycemic index isn't bad, but when you're coupling it with vegetables, it definitely lowers it a bit. It makes everything a little bit slower digesting.
Yeah.
So, but I can consume jasmine rice in bulk a lot easier than, say, brown rice. Now, I don't consume brown rice because of the phytic acid and arsenic, blah, 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 blah. Like, I can't eat it. The amount that you're getting from that is so minute. I wouldn't even worry about it. You're really not getting much fiber from brown rice, but I think the quantity of jasmine rice I can eat is way easier for me to get down than, say, brown rice. Quinoa, like I just had quinoa for lunch. I went over to this place, True Fruit. It was like, what was in it? Mushrooms, bok choy, broccoli, double order of chicken. It was about 6-7 ounces of chicken, quinoa, and it's like you got a great meal right there.
Amazing. So do you feel like diet has a bigger impact on testosterone than working out? Like, what type of resistance training would you do?
Well, I think everything we just talked about. Like, I'm if you're a kettlebell person, great. If you can work with dumbbells, barbells, great. But if you come to me and you're like, I absolutely hate touching iron and I want to use cables, I'm like, okay, you can create resistance with cables. Go for it, right? Like, I'm totally fine with that. But I think strength training, very important. Protein, very important. Sleep, very important. Other things, hydration, are going to be important. They're going to contribute to that. And listen, you start talking about other modalities like sauna or cold plunging and can these things contribute to it? Maybe. My testosterone over the last 3-4 years went naturally from 630, and this is not my free testosterone, this is my total. I think it was 680, 680 to 930. And people are like, well, how did you do that? Because they know I wasn't taking anything. And I really believe it was the lack of stress. I went from commuting 3 hours a day in and out of the city, riding the Long Island Railroad, riding the trains, dealing with a landlord I hated, just like all these things that were stress, to suddenly now, being able to work in my own environment, control my own schedule. I was a lot happier. Things just from a stress level improved. So I really think that's one of the biggest right there. If you can start
and you kept everything fairly the same. It was just that you feel it was the major difference.
Nutrition, fairly the same. I'm probably even more consistent now with my calories than I was in the past. Things I'm thinking more about now, like fiber, because I understand the importance of that. Mobility, definitely a little bit more now than it was probably 10 years ago. I was still doing it 10 years ago, but now it's like these are things even on my off day that I'm not neglecting, and I understand the importance of that. And I think it's this whole entire umbrella policy that allows those numbers to improve. The problem I have with a lot of the TRT stuff going on is that people want to revert right to that, and they don't want to exhaust the other things that I'm talking about. Like, everyone's talking about doing things that are hard. Like, it's been like the new topic for the last 3 to 5 years. I like to challenge myself every day. Like, I like to do something hard every day. Cold plunging is hard. Like, I'm not going to knock it. I cold plunge a lot because I enjoy it. I don't think it's hard. I think what's hard is going to bed at a certain time and waking up at a certain time and going through your morning routine when it hasn't changed in the last 20 years, or having to get that meal down when this morning I just don't want to do it. Or like going about the monotonous things that are going to give you a big return. I think that's what's hard. And that's what I would really like to challenge people to do. And I'm not for a second going to bash things like cold plunging or so. If I do either a sauna or a cold plunge every day and I feel healthier doing it, I'm like, awesome. Do it. Awesome. But like, these things are not going to like make this drastic change in your life. And it does great. I'm super happy for you. But those other things that we're talking about, those are the things I want you to put the most amount of weight into.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said about like how reducing stress impacted your testosterone. Because if you think about some of the things that are like recommended, quote unquote, are like ashwagandha, tongarali. Like, these are all like stress reducers from what I've heard. So it's interesting
but again, like, how much is that? I've never taken a supplement in my life that has given me this like, oh my God, like Oh my God, unbelievable. Like this is game changing. There are things I've been taking for 20, 30 years that like creatine monohydrate or I love a supplement from Timeline called Mitopure for your mitochondria. Like fish, fish oil, vitamin D. These are things that are part of my routine, but you know, it's never been like this one supplement where suddenly I'm waking up being like, I can run through a wall. Like I'll receive that type of return when my stress is down, when my nutrition is really good, my training's good, and I'm happy. When I'm happy, I run on this, right? Like it's just when I'm happy and I'm in a really good place mentally, I feel my strength go up. When there is a ton of stress and I'm dealing with a lot of different things, which is common, you know, you fight that battle a bit, and I know that's what kind of beats us up. But to think that like there's one supplement out there that's suddenly like the magic pill, like guys, like it's just it's this stuff changes so much. Because there is none. Every week it's like, oh my God, like ginseng. Oh my God, like this, that. And you're like, okay, it's going to continue to change. Like there is no fountain of youth. There is one thing, there are things that we can take that we need towards our health. But these other things in our life have to be, you know, get those things good.
Yeah.
You know, and then these things could be like the sprinkles on the ice cream.
Talk to me about that. So you talked about reducing stress. What's been the biggest impact for you? And when you do face stress inevitably, like what's the routine that you go through that helps you reduce anxiety, stress, sleep better?
Yeah, so stress for me, it's normally like some type of training. Like I've had some stressful days where my lift has been done already, and you know I might now throw on a weighted vest and you know do a high incline walk, or do something lower steady state, not like high intensity, but something that's going to allow me to sweat and pump my endorphins a bit and allow myself to be in a good place mentally. Outdoor walks are really helpful. You know, I mean, my faith is important also. I mean, it's just things that like, you know, whoever you believe in, like you got, like, I just believe, you know, if you have that one thing that you can go to and it's going to kind of help you recover. And it's been some pretty dark places in business. So to be able to have that and just say to yourself, it's going to be okay. Like no matter what, like, it's not going to matter for me 50 years from now. I'm either here at 98 or I'm gone, like 97 or I'm gone. Like at that point, it doesn't matter. No one's going to look at what you had in your bank account. It's just, you know, we really have to, I think surrounding ourselves with the right people and trying to minimize those things in time is important. Now, when I was getting started and I was 25 years old doing a raise and raising a large amount of money, no, I signed up for that. You know, you can't like have your cake and eat it too. You can't say, oh, I want to be a business owner or I could do this better than Don. Then go do it. Like, honestly, go do it. Go raise the money. Go do it in the big city. You know, go, you know, talk to me when things start going bad. That's when those are the big eye openers. And that really allowed me to become very humble. I am expendable. No matter who I was around, no matter what people love me or who I trained, I understand I'm expendable and I can be replaced tomorrow. So I think recognizing that is a really important thing for me to do. Anyone downstairs, all the big names, all the big medical names right now, one thing can happen. They're expendable. They're out. No one's going to care about them. So I think we need to take time to, you know, help people out who may not be in the same situation that, you know, you're in or who are struggling and they need, a little help with their mindset. And that's why I launched my challenge community back in 2020.
Yeah. I mean, is that a mindset that you've had for a while, that like that knowing the humbleness of that you could be replaced and like.
Yeah. So I grew up with that. I had a bad hearing problem growing up. I had a massive surgery. I had a bad stuttering problem. Like I had a tough run when I was a young kid,
Really?
second grade. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think fitness really allowed me to feel significant about myself. You know, I think I was the typical at the time where it was like, oh, he trained and he played sport to, you know, make up for maybe things I thought at the time I wasn't good at. Went and worked for my family at a catering hall, real blue collar mentality. All I wanted to do was prove to my dad and my grandfather and my uncle that I was the hardest worker in the room at 13 years old. So I was trying to sweep floors faster than everyone or be the little guy who was, you know, trying to show how strong he was. And I was going into work with my old man at 10 a.m. on the weekends, not leaving until 2, 3 in the morning. I mean, it was bananas. And this wasn't for like a year. This was for a very long time. Some of the best lessons of my life came from those, you know, from those things that they installed in me at a very young age. But, you know, I think when I became a coach and followed my passion and followed it not for the money, but because it was something I really wanted to do, and realized that I shined when I just was the good person that I know I am and just tried to help people, I think my focus and my model became really easy. Like, you know what? I'm not going to be the smartest person in the room always. I know a lot about this stuff, but I have plenty of friends of mine that are PhDs and that are like, they'll blow you out of the water with their knowledge. But what can I do? How I handle people and how I coach and how I have been able over the last 26 years to change people who can't do this or that have struggled or have given up, and I'm able to kind of get in their head and rewire the way that they approach things and the way that they look at things. And that for me is something I've taken a lot of pride in. So I think it's also embracing my strengths and understanding where my weaknesses were or they are. And now as I've been assembling a team over the last few years, making sure that they're great people in certain areas that I'm like, this is all you right now. Come on. Like, this is like, you're like, I'm pitching and you're catching or playing first base here. This is your position. Run with it and show me. And I think that's been a really cool thing to say.
Yeah, as a business owner, it's like, and obviously as a fitness coach, it's like half of it is like running the systems, but the other half is like you're kind of like a psychologist. You're like a therapist, like managing people and understanding how they think. It's so much background knowledge that you have to think about to be a good leader, to have that advantage.
Probably the most important quality. I mean, any good coach can, or any good trainer can build a training program, right? I think it's that moment you see the client walking in. Do you have the ability to look at that person and be like, oh boy, we got our work cut out for us today. I can tell this person's not in a good place. And how are you going to adjust to that session? Every 20 seconds, you turn in and being like, are you okay? Are you okay? What's wrong? What's wrong? Because you're going to piss them off and they're not going to want to come back in. Or do you know how to flick that switch and adjust to their temperament? Maybe in a few minutes, they're asking you, you all right? You're being a little quiet. Just giving you time, man.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, my goal right now is in the next 50 minutes, I want you leaving here feeling a little bit better. Well, I'm going through, want to talk? Come on, man. Want to take a few minutes? Let's talk in between sets.
Yeah.
And the next, they're leaving feeling a different person, like a different person. And I think that's coaching.
So we talked a lot about tactics here, but I think what we touched on is probably the most important is the psychology, the invisible mind limitations that people have about what they can do in terms of performance or what weight they can get to. You've worked with so many clients, and I'm sure you've probably seen the patterns at this point, right? Like you're seeing the same types of things, and I'm sure there's things that you can say, okay, you can probably say something like this or tweak the program to unlock that for them or to help them get over those limitations in their minds. What are some of those big psychological limitations that you find most people have and what are the things that you've done to kind of unlock that?
I think a lot of people have a negative outlook on this process. And you see it every year. The New Year's resolution rolls around and everyone's like starting the new program or the new diet and they're diving into it for 2 weeks. They're taking the exact same approach, or they think they're taking a different approach, but it's the same approach. It's just with a different person.
Yes.
And then 2 weeks in, they're like, crapping out and going and having dinner and having a bunch of drinks and getting on the scale the next day. And they're like, I gained 5 of the 7 pounds back that I lost. I don't want to do this anymore. And it's like, all right. Like, I think the problem is that you need a different approach. And just like, I love that minimalistic approach. Even like when I work with athletes, is the goal to destroy them? No, absolutely not. The goal is to allow them to get stronger, feel fresh, leave when they want to keep going. Because I want them to recover. And the goal is their sport. Their goal is for them to play better, especially when it's in season. Like off season, we could talk, right? We could probably push it a little bit more, but I think it's assessing the individual and finding out what have they done in the past? Like, what is it? All right, what have you tell me about your training. Tell me about your training. Was there a coach you worked with? Yes. What did you like about him? Well, I like this. What didn't you like about him? He kept making me squat. I hate squats. Every time I squat, I get hurt. Now, I know that we need squatting every day. We got to get in and out of a car. We got to get on the toilet. Last I checked, we're still getting on the toilet, right? So, all right. So am I going to come in there and be like, well, your coach doesn't know what he's talking about. And he's right. You do need squatting, but he just doesn't know how to coach. And I do. So I'm going to show you the right way to squat. And then they get hurt again. They're like, see that? Like the same thing happened. Like, keep them away from that stuff for now. Earn their trust. Take a minimalistic approach. Let them be like, oh my God, this is actually kind of easy right now. And I'm actually excited to come back in. I'm feeling better. And then we just turn the volume up a little bit more and a little bit more. And the next thing you know, it's like, you hurt your back on back squats, right? He's like, yeah. Can you just hold a kettlebell in your hand here? Or a really light dumbbell? Sit down like you're sitting on the toilet. Great. Like, how'd that feel? Feels really good. Like, it doesn't feel bad at all. All right, just give me 10 reps or 15 reps, whatever it is. And afterwards, like, how'd you like that? Like, I actually felt really good. I felt that in my glutes. It didn't hurt my back. Like, you were squatting, right? And they're like, no, but the bar wasn't on my back. I'm like, no, you were that's called the goblet squat, or this is called a split squat. Like, we just have to find a way to get inside that person's head. And we got to find a way. We need, as coaches, we need people to be successful with their training sessions.
Yeah.
And we need them to leave feeling like, oh man, like that's exactly what I needed today. That felt like the right temperature. Coaches need to stop doing what they think is best for them. Name drop right now, but I worked with Calvin Klein for many years. One of the most recognizable names, I think, in the world. Like, everyone, I think I'm wearing his underwear right now. Not his underwear, but actually Calvin Klein. But I remember him coming into me. I went through the assessment. I took him through an assessment, and he's like, listen, you come recommended from everyone. You got a great reputation. But I could tell you right now, these are my goals. I said, great. He goes, if we sit here for 45 minutes doing breathing and mobility, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. I'm not going to train with you. I don't care how good you are. Great lesson. Wow. I turned him and said, I'll make you a deal. Remember the foam rolling that we did? He goes, yeah. Can you get in 5 minutes early and do that? He goes, yeah. Could you allow me 10 minutes a day to work on mobility? He goes, absolutely. I go, then we'll get in your bodybuilding stuff. I kept him for 3 years. Wow. We minimized injury. He started enjoying the mobility. Was it everything he needed? No. Was it enough to get him to improve? Yes. And I think that's a lesson.
That's a psychological hack, right? Because the North metric is almost like fun. Like, you're trying to get people to be energized, to have fun. And that leads you, like, the secondary consequences of that is that they can actually do the work once they get that mode. It's kind of like, there's a great book by BJ Fogg, Tiny Habits.
What's it called?
The author is BJ Fogg, and the book is called Tiny Habits.
Tiny Habits, okay.
And it's all about, like, how you can trick your own brain to do more stuff. So one of the things is, like, if you've never flossed before and you want to get in the habit of flossing, the trick is not to try to floss every day. It's to floss one tooth.
Yeah.
Literally just like one tooth.
Yeah.
Put it down. First of all, you're going to look at how ridiculous it is. Yeah. The fact that you just did one tooth and you have food stuck all over your
my
tray,
God, it's
right?
funny, yeah.
And then you start with the second tooth, right? And then the third. And it's like, the hardest thing about going to the gym is getting to the gym. And I found that so fascinating. And that's kind of what you're saying, is like starting with the tiny things that'll unlock all of these, things that you want to do in the gym or in
Sean,
life.
I built 10-minute programs.
Yeah.
I built 10-minute programs for people as a default from when they just don't have time and they can't do it. Or they're like, I'm in a massive slump. And they're like, at minute 20, I am losing complete interest in this. Like, anything more than 20 minutes, I can't do it. Like, I build them a 15-minute program. Like, there's nothing I can't build for that person. There's nothing I can't build to allow that person to be successful. I've done, though, one exercise a day workout. Like, I've seen people do this where they've gone in and maybe just horizontal pressed one day, lunged one day, pull-ups one day, shoulder presses one day, core work, maybe a bicep one day. It's like, I've split it up that way to where in this week we've accumulated all this work. Like, guys, it's better than nothing, right? It's like, do something, build some consistency, and then, maybe you're saying those beautiful words to me, like, what's next? Like, we end up talking about.
Beautiful, man. Well, any last tips that you can share for people that, have struggled with fatigue or trying to gain weight or trying to lose weight? Anything around health, wellness, longevity that you can share?
Yeah, I want to reiterate, let's take one thing this month. And I really think one of the first things should be hydration. I don't think for anyone who says there's no non-negotiables, I think that's a terrible thing. Like, there are, like, hydration's a non-negotiable.
What's a hack that you found to drink more water?
It's funny. I have this 46-ounce Yeti.
A massive one.
Yeah, like it's like this big. It's not. I used to carry the Guido gallon one, and I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. But the 46-ounce Yeti, I know that I need a minimum of 2.5 to 3. So just having that in your hand and blasting one in the morning, drinking the next one till like 3 o'clock, and then the rest of the day is just sipping until 6. Has been a real easy hack. I think the biggest mistake is like when you're walking around with those small little bottles and you just don't know what you're having, and then like 5 hours have gone by and you're like, I've been drinking water and you've only had 2 of those. Like, okay, you've been drinking water. It's not enough water. Hydration is like magic, I'm telling you. So I think maybe spending this month working on that, next month, starting to raise those steps. I do think to roughly that 10,000 number is a good number. Yeah. I think it is good. Does it have to be 10? No. Could be 9, could be 11. I think these are really good basic things. And then just that easy workout approach. Like, everyone's getting a free workout from me. Like, I'm not selling you anything. Like, dog it. Seriously, at the very least, take 3 days and just go 50% intensity. I promise you by the end of the 4 weeks, you're going to feel better. And I think that's got to be where they start.
Let's see. Let's make sure we tell people where to find that. So where do they go?
DonSaladino.com. I think my team emailed you a specific code that they're going to.
Okay. Okay. We'll get that in the link.
Sorry, I didn't have that here, but
Yeah.
DonSaladino.com. It'll be whenever you figure it out with them, but whatever that next challenge is, they're going to have access to, and
Yeah.
hopefully I'll meet some people.
Awesome. And then it's Don Saladino on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok.
X.
Yeah. IG is where I'm most active.
Yeah. Yeah.
Appreciate your time, man.
Awesome, man.
Awesome. It's great. It's great
Dude,
talking
I appreciate
to you.
you.
Thank you so much,
that was
man.
awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers.
That was fun. Thank you again.